My final presentation is over inquiry charts, which I found in Classroom Strategies for Interactive Learning by Buell. So the content area I will be reviewing is science for an after reading activity or strategy that you will be doing with the students. So with the inquiry charts, you actually have the choice to decide for your students to be in a group, work individually, or follow along with you. When you first introduce inquiry charts, you should have them follow after you, and then once they get more of a rhythm into how to do the inquiry charts, they can be left to do in partners or in small groups, whatever the teacher's choice is. So this is a quick example of what an inquiry chart looks like, which is the questions would actually be on the very top, and on the side you would actually put any prior knowledge that you have of the content or of the text that you just read. When doing inquiry charts, you also want to pick one specific topic for students to focus on. So with the inquiry chart that I'm about to do, we will be focusing on the different types of rocks and how to classify them. We'll have your students pair up or be in groups, or do it up on your whiteboard and brainstorm different things that they still have questions about in regards to different types of rocks. From your brainstorm list, you're going to want to pick 3 to 4 questions for students to write into their inquiry charts. These questions, you want students to have to investigate them a little bit further than the information that they already have in hand. So these questions that you picked, you will write them on the very top of your inquiry chart, whether it's 3 or 4. I just picked 3 really easy questions for the topic that I'm reviewing in this sample for an inquiry chart, which will be different types of rocks. Once students have written down all the questions, you will read them out loud so students can begin to brainstorm any prior knowledge that they might have that will help answer these questions. So the 3 questions that I wrote down was: what makes rocks different? What rocks tell us about the past? And how does the rock cycle work? So whenever I think about my prior knowledge, I know that rocks form differently depending on the temperature that they're created. So I can write that down on my chart. That'll be 1. Also, something about the past. I know that fossils can be embedded in rocks. So fossils are from the past. That kind of relates. So we can go ahead and write that down as well on our chart. And I know that the process of rocks changing from one type to another is the rock cycle. So I can also write that down. So now my chart looks a little bit more filled out. It looks like this. And that's all the information that you can fill out as a whole class before breaking off students into their pairs or their groups to finish off the second part. Now you'll have students finish answering the questions. Now that they have some foundation to go on, they can look up websites, they can look at different books, or they can go back and look at the textbook and the content that you read to try and find the answers for these questions. Any type of answer that they are able to find, they can either write down on their chart, or they can write it down on a smaller piece of paper or on a sticky note. You will stop the groups and the students and bring the whole class back together, and everybody can stick their sticky notes or just read them aloud for other students to be able to write them down into their inquiry charts, fully answering the questions that were laid out on the top. Once the inquiry charts are finished, students can summarize all the information that has been written out into a small journal passage answering each of the questions that were asked. And that's the end of how you would create an inquiry chart. I really like this strategy because it allows students to both work independently and in group, focus on specific questions, trying to find the answers for those questions, as well as organize their thoughts and their notes. Inquiry charts are very helpful in science because it allows students to connect a variety of information that has been reviewed, and they are also able to investigate their prior knowledge to connect it to the new content and be able to answer questions that they're coming up as they are reading this content. It also allows them to be able to lay out all the information that they have learned and be able to easily review it all to be able to have a more concise understanding of everything that they have read.